You're listening to Tripod, the Tricycle Creative podcast, created to help entrepreneurs be better marketers. Each episode features news, tips, interviews, and commentary from the worlds of marketing, media, and, well, miscellaneous. Now, here are your co-hosts, Ross Erosion and Chris Slezak.
It is episode 11. I am Ross, and as always on Tripod, the Tricycle Creative Marketing Podcast, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the Chester Cheeto to my Colonel Sanders, Chris Slezak.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You always say you're good. I don't believe it.
You never believe. Yeah.
8 out of 10 times I'll believe it.
I'm always good.
I don't know if you knew this. I'm doing pretty good, but it is my birthday week.
Yeah. Have you begun celebrations?
I had a drink for this podcast, so this will be fun. Here we go, folks.
Oh, man.
Hold on to your hats. No. I don't think I've started celebrating. I don't know if that's a sign or not. No, not really. No, nothing significant. The celebration will be at the party that you have been invited to. So when you show up, that's when the party is.
You being the audience, everyone listening.
Don't give out the details. You're all my friends, but I don't think there's a table for 50 at the place we're going, or 0. On that note, I would like to encourage you and remind you to subscribe in whatever player you are listening to this: Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, what have you. Please subscribe, comment, rate, all that good stuff. All right. So, Chris.
Yeah.
Anything else new with you? What else new to report?
Nothing of consequence. My life's pretty boring for the most part.
Sounds it.
It's,
fantastic.
I'm in the summer slumps. I'm not gigging right now. I think the most exciting thing in my life is that we've let the chickens that we have in our backyard roam the backyard a little bit. So
yeah,
if watching chickens eat grass in your backyard instead of walk around in their dog pen
is like, I was going to say menagerie. I don't know.
Yeah, that's usually how we refer to it.
Right. I mean, what is your animal count right now, currently?
Let's see. 1 dog, 1 cat, 2 turtles, 2 fish, 3 chickens.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
And, a couple visiting hummingbirds every now and then.
Sure.
Spiders.
They're known to do that. Oh, those are a given, for sure.
I don't know if those count.
They don't count. You're not, unless you're actively, like, responsible and caring for those animals, which maybe you are. You're quite handy. You're like, when you go outside, is it like Snow White in the woods? There's like a squirrel burrows out of your beard.
Yeah, it feels that way. But it probably looks a little grosser than Snow White,
Who's better? Who has the more like intangible, like animal magnetism? You or your wife?
Me. She is the more.
Does that annoy her?
Yes, because she's the one that wants all the animals, and then gets annoyed that they all prefer me. Except for the dog, which is supposed to be my dog. The dog does not prefer me. Every dog I've ever met prefers me.
We only have one animal. We have one dog, and I mean, my wife claims that it loves me so much more. Ellie, our dog, follows me everywhere. Everywhere I go, she's following me. And I think that does upset. Now, the flip side of that is when it comes to sleeping, we shamefully let our dog sleep. It used to be on the bed. Now it's essentially in the bed. I mean, it's ridiculous, but she's all up on me. I mean, you'd never think that like a 50-pound dog could take up that much room and emanate that much heat. It's just bananas what she does in the night. It is insane. So that's the flip side of that love, uncomfortableness. Maybe that's the flip side of any strong.
I'm waiting until the chickens are sleeping in our bed. That I think is where I'm going to draw the line on chickens.
I do feel like that's a good line to draw there.
Yeah.
So, well, before the chickens start sleeping with you, let's talk about what is on deck for today's show. So you inadvertently made a very interesting call, if you will. We were talking about I almost said Star Wars. Wow. Talking about Harry Potter. Last week, you'd made a mention, and it is now prompted. We're going to talk a little bit about a really neat kind of program by Vans, every skater kid's favorite shoe company. Mm-hmm. Then in the marketing category, we are going to talk about copywriting. You brought that one to the table today. So you went wagered a little bit outside of that miscellaneous territory and into marketing. And you have a kind of an opinion piece when it comes to copywriting, which is also something that you do during the day. So excited to hear all about that. And then lastly, miscellaneous, in the vein of helping our fellow small business entrepreneur, business owner out there. I came across this is a cross promotion, if you will, of another podcast, and there's a really, really, really interesting, helpful segment that I'm actually doing now that I wanted to bring to the table, and it's talking about it's called the 5-task rule. So we're going to talk about that today. How does that sound for you?
I'm ready for it.
Are you ready for it? I'm stretching right now. I'm doing my stretches. I'm going to stretch out my groin.
Is that where you primarily stretch before
and a podcast? Mostly, yes. Jean-Claude Van Damme style, I do this entire podcast in a split. So I hope that impresses you. And with that, on with the show. So in our first show topic, the topic of media, we were talking, I believe it was last show, the historic, legendary, I believe I got a call earlier this week. It is now in the Smithsonian. So just huge kudos to us. Episode number 10. Do you remember that episode, Chris?
I remember getting some sort of award in the mail. Yeah.
Yes, you did get a Marconi Award for our work in podcasting. So we got that on episode 10. If you want to go back and listen to it, it is by far the first double-digit episode. We were talking about the new Harry Potter Wizards Unite game because we're a bunch of dorks. Okay, and
why are you laughing so much?
Because, anyways, but you mentioned just flippantly, just a little throwaway. Oh, you'd think that like Adidas should get in on this with some kind of Harry Potter walking shoe. Well, friend, you nailed it, except you didn't nail it totally. You bent the nail right at the end. So you almost had it. And the shoe company that's doing that is actually Vans. Are you a current Vans shoe wearer?
Yeah, I think I do actually have a set of Vans.
Yes. Everyone our age in their 30s definitely, I feel like, wore Vans during some phase in their life. We probably wore them for longer than maybe most. I still wear them to this day. I still have probably a couple pair, actually. But Vans is doing this really neat tie-in. And to be fair, I think they've been doing this prior to the Harry Potter Wizards Unite, but it now makes all the more sense in the world where you can get Harry Potter customization on your shoes. So I'm looking at it now. I have it pulled up, and they have some like designs that are just like miscellaneous symbols from the movie. So you got Harry Potter's glasses. You got a snake, Slytherin. Ooh. You got the lightning bolt. You have broomsticks. You have all kinds of things that you would absolutely recognize as a Harry Potter fan. And then you have some designs from each of the houses, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. So you and I guess, are rocking the Hufflepuff shoes For the love of God, I'm not. If you gift me Hufflepuff shoes, by the way, at the party, you're gonna get a shoe in the face. But yeah, it's very interesting, and I just thought it was so serendipitous that you mentioned that, and then I saw this.
Yeah, it was funny how right I was.
It's almost as if you knew. The thing about this though is it's not just Harry Potter. This is part of their complete customization like platform. So you can completely customize with your own photos and I think even text, all kinds of stuff, their shoes now. And that brought me to thinking about and wanted to talk a little bit about kind of customization as a whole, right? I mean, customization when you're starting your business and when you're offering your services for the first time. I think the easiest thing actually to do. So we don't have like packages. Tricycle Creative doesn't have packages because for the most part, all of our client needs are different. We're running a summer sale right now. We have some of our most popular packages up, but generally speaking, I talk to our perspectives and then we put packages together, right? For you, and I mean, the services can be different than products, but how kind of big into customization?
So big.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I had.
Well, as a musician, maybe that's because I know that's your sweet spot, or that's your soft spot. Maybe is better to say.
Maybe I had custom Converse a couple of years ago that I wore. I wore them all the time. Decorated my own pattern, had a little stitching on the side. Was so proud of them. Was just the biggest dork in the dumbest looking shoes, and I couldn't have been prouder. Those
were your Hufflepuff shoes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
No, I love customizing. Even like the idea of just make me believe that I'm doing something custom.
And I think it's all the more obvious and apparent with a product versus a service, right?
Sure.
I mean, the ability to customize and then essentially make it your own and then make people say, oh, that's cool. I want that. Where'd you get it? How'd you do it? That's so much more obvious on a product side than it is on a service side. What about with your music stuff and now you're also a drummer. So does a drummer buy more things than other members of a band? Just out of curiosity.
It certainly feels like it. At least to me. I mean, down to the seat that you sit on, I have to purchase, There's so many little parts. And maybe I don't know enough about guitars, but I'm like, what do you got? You got your the body, the neck, the strings, and a pick. I got more than that just on one drum.
Is your stuff currently are there customization things right now that you have?
No, I mean, I picked the color. It's not like I was just handed a color.
Sure.
But then me and my wife printed my own custom design for the front drum head of my own face onto the front. So what a face! That.
What a great face! Yeah. One of the best faces you could ever see.
It's hard to see the drums in the back. It's hard to see me behind all the other players, and so it's nice to just have my face right there front and center, underneath my own face.
I think it helps. Double face attack at you, I believe is the technical term for that. So,
I mean, even customizing, like you said, customizing services. I mean, I think even that I think you feel like you have more control.
I think this also starts to get into swag, right? The stuff that companies buy, to give out. And, I've always been so kind of gun shy over swag because it just inherent in its name, stuff we all get. It sometimes I feel like you're giving it away and just saying, hey, can you throw this away for me?
Yeah, how's this T-shirt gonna look on the rack of a Goodwill?
And that so I think that, and it's and that can be a very tempting call for many businesses. Oh, you want to get promotional products, but at the end of the day, it seems silly, but given the whole range of things you could buy, one of the safest things I feel like is still pens. At least people use them, like people will use a pen.
Yeah,
pens travel.
I feel like I've gotten a lot of like lens wipes.
Lens wipes.
Yeah, like a microfiber cloth.
Yeah. Interesting. How many of those does one need when they have extra T-shirt?
Like
even me as a photographer, that's probably not a good thing to say. But listen, I'm in the same boat. I probably have branded towelette things just like you got. I'm always just going to yield to my stupid T-shirt when I'm in the field. Right. I just don't remember, I don't remember. So I think customization, it's one of those things that if you have a product, again, so much easier to do customization for people. And you can utilize this through social too. Think about ways that maybe you can celebrate your followers. Think back if you're a bakery shop, and you have people, maybe you do a monthly contest and you have people send you their spirit animal, and you pick for that month one person from that, and you make a cookie in the shape of their spirit animal or something like that.
Kind of like Lay's with their design a flavor.
Yeah, totally.
Those contests that they have all the time.
Yeah. And so I just would encourage you to think about ways that you can, I think, incorporate in your customers, even your current customers, and then in a way that really gets them invested in what you're doing. And there's one of these shows, we should probably talk entirely about the sales funnel, if you will. But at the very, very bottom of the sales funnel, even after they've bought something, is this loyalty / ambassador function. And it's a smaller percentage. Everything goes down the funnel, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, even of people who purchase, but people who are delighted by your product or your service or your brand. And I think that's where customization gets in. It gets into this delight, into this ambassador, into this phase of the funnel where they're essentially doing a part of your marketing for you. And I think you're also building loyalty to have them come back. Like I saw that you had mentioned they do Converse ones. I actually didn't, realize Vans has a full customization thing too. Now that I'm sitting here on this website, I may not even listen to the next segment. I may customize some shoes, but I got to be honest with that's just me. I got to be honest with you. Stay off the internet, Chris. Don't do it to me. I'm doing that. That's what you're doing. Are you doing that right now? Are you customizing shoes right now?
I had to close the tab.
You bastard.
All right. It's my turn. The next segment we're going to do is it's an opinion blog that I found about copywriting and somewhat about time management a little bit, or at least realistic expectations of creative thought. And the brief of the blog, it's just that that copywriting is about waiting. Writing in general is about waiting, and that a lot of companies and marketing, they want things, they want things done fast. They want it done right now. They need to get it out the door. But a lot of good ideas need time to marinate, and you don't always want to just throw out the first idea you have without really, working on it and letting it sit. And as you mentioned, I do some copywriting, for a living, and it really does sometimes. You just gotta like write and rewrite and look at it and say like, is this the best thing to do? And usually people, there's that assumption out there that it's like, well, how hard is it to write, 50 words, 100 words? Like how long could that take? And it's like, well, it depends on how good you want the words to be. I mean, if you write the first 50 words that come to your head, it's probably not going to be very good.
And I would argue it's harder to write 100 words than it is 300. Interestingly enough.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, you really have to think, and at least the copywriting that I do, a lot of times it really is about being brief. It's like people don't have the attention span for you to really get out everything you want to say or everything you think you need to say. And more than likely, the things you want to say aren't the things people want to hear.
And we've talked about this a little bit too. And I would say to anyone out there who is managing their social to some extent, but definitely if they're managing their digital ads, to pick up some copywriting books. And we can throw some of our recommendations in the show notes, which is at tripodpodcast.com. Because copywriting, I think people think it's kind of this lost art, but it's not. If anything, it's stronger than ever before because you have to be a good copywriter for digital ads, just as you had to be a good copywriter for print ads. Like the principles are very similar and connected because you're talking about attention span and driving action. You could even argue that, I suppose now, while it is noisier, the action is easier, from a digital perspective than a print perspective. All you got to do is click, right?
Right. But
copywriting, a couple weeks ago, we met for coffee and we were just talking about Google Ads. And for a handful of our clients, we manage their Google Ads accounts. And right now we're just doing search, text only. Some stuff on display network, but not too much. But search, text only. And people, just like you said, I think a lot of people's impression is, oh, you're just writing text. That should be so much easier than doing like a Facebook ad where you have a photo or a video or a whatever it is, And the reality is it probably takes me 2 to 3 times as long to do a Google ad and my team than it does a Facebook ad.
Yeah, I mean, writing short copy, I mean, it's like sculpting from marble. You have to remove. It's about removal and not adding words.
Yeah, and it's not only just short copy, but it is severely it's short, specific, and limited. So, for example, you have 50 characters to work with, right? And the thing about Google or any ad platform is if they're giving you the real estate, for the most part, you want to use it. So when you're sitting and writing, you want to try and use all 50 characters. And I can't tell you how many times, even talking with my team of people who write some of them, it's like we're throwing stuff against the wall. We're taking this word away. You're wordsmithing the hell out of it. It's challenging. It's not just the words too. It's Google Ads is big on benefits versus and features. How do you make mention to both benefits and features in a balanced way, or do you want to lean heavier on benefits? Do you want to lean heavier on features? Where does that go? If we're going to talk about continue the conversation with Google Ads, extensions, what are the types of other things you're adding in there, calls to action, and that Google Ads has very strict rules, as most of the ad platforms do, on what and how you even format what you're saying. Google hates all caps, which is kind of like, thank you.
Don't we all?
Thank God. If they let advertisers use all caps all the time, we would be living in a nightmare.
If I could go on a tangent for a second, I think something that I see that drives me more crazy, which this has nothing to do with copywriting. If I saw that's in copy, get it. What's up with people using commas instead of periods for like an ellipses? You know what I mean? Have you seen people type that way on Facebook or something? They make a post and it comma, and comma chameleon instead of a bunch of periods.
Ugh.
Monsters.
Oh,
and usually probably in their 60s, but monsters nonetheless.
God, why would you do that? That's not even remotely correct.
I just wanted to air that grievance.
I thought my beef with Oxford comma was deep, but that's gnarly.
Do we need to have a segment on the Oxford comma? Do we fall on different sides of it? I think we might.
Why don't you tell me where you land, and I'll tell you.
I am pro Oxford comma.
I'm 100% pro.
Okay.
Anyone that doesn't use the Oxford comma is a savage. And I'm going to go on record to say that because I just said it. Chris, don't edit that out. All right? You don't understand. You non-Oxford. You know the people that don't use it, they're like AP style people. Those people,
Those people don't read out loud is what they don't
They don't understand organization of concepts. They don't get it. All right?
But all that being said, I mean, everything, every social media post you make, I think there needs to be rights and rewrites to them. I think you do need to, pay attention to what you're saying. And I think it's easy to write, certainly my method of writing is that I like to write stream of consciousness. I'll just start writing, put down something, and then go back and whittle it down to what really needs to be said. And I think that's what's important is like, kind of get to the point in a lot of ways, It's just say what you're trying to say. Like, don't try to be too clever about it, or at least say what you're trying to say first and then get clever.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, try to identify what the most important things are, and then get clever, work backwards, almost because. And I think with organic social, I don't know if it needs as much like, agita over rewriting and writing, but I will say there probably could be some value. I could tell you, I've sent out some posts and I'm like, damn, like 20 minutes later when I see it in my own feed, I'm like, I should have said this,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've done that, but I think when it comes specifically and particularly for ads, all the more reason sometimes, to step away from it and come back to it with fresh eyes. I find that that's one of my best tactics with Google Ads because it's so easy to get lost and get like brain fried from it, trying to get the words to fit. And to, again, use up all the real estate. And I think this speaks to a larger thing, too, about marketing as a whole, right? The idea that copywriting can't be done, or let's just say it can be done quickly, but oftentimes with added time to think strategically or think creatively, it is better. Let me put it that way, right? I think that applies to a lot of marketing. And I'll say that a lot of people I talk to, they're looking for quick gains, and they're looking for quick gains and then to kind of like take their money and run. And marketing is just like any other part of the business that you don't just do it for a month. You don't just do it for a quarter. The way that marketing works, it's a function of your business. You do it consistently. And that's, I think, a big disconnect. We're able to help people in short spurts because I can appreciate that sometimes and oftentimes our clients need that help in short terms, and maybe they just can't. But if you're going into business or you own a business, you need to figure out a way that you are dedicating, if nothing else, time, resources, or money consistently to your marketing. It's not like something that you go in on a little and then you go out. You go in on a little, you go out. I mean, that's what people do, but that's not how you get consistent and start to like build. I keep going back to the analogies, like going to the gym, how you flex that muscle. You got to keep lifting the weight. You got to keep doing it, and you'll get better at it, and it'll get better, and it'll grow, even just by doing nothing more than just doing it consistently. I assume as someone who's in the creative space, you are, Chris, familiar with the, I believe it is, I know it as the production triangle. Do you know the production triangle?
I think so, but for, let's say, the listener's sake, and let's say
Sure.
not my own.
Sure.
What are you talking about?
It's you can have it fast.
Fast,
you
cheap,
can
and
have
good.
it.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
have it cheap. You can have it good. I also use right. You can have it right, and you get
Yeah.
to. I think good is like, nonetheless, but you only get to pick two of those three, because everyone wants it exactly right, super fast, and super cheap, and it don't work like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can have
Which
it super fast, but it is rarely going to be cheap.
Right.
In that case,
It's amazing how much that applies to everything, really.
right? I know. I think it's one of those things. It came across, in my world in the production capacity, but I do think that it really applies to so much in life. And I think it's almost something that anyone should be thoughtful of, going into their own work with clients, understand, or customers, how you expectation setting, if you will.
Yeah. And, one more thing I want to mention is that I got this blog via thedrum.com, which I'm to understand you were not able to access this article.
Okay, let's take a quick derailment off of the cup. Here's the thing. That website, I go to it, an article gives like a quick tease, and then a pop-up. Well, pop over. Technically, I guess they're not pop-ups anymore, but nonetheless, comes up, covers all the content page, says, hey, essentially a register, right? And they make all this big to-do about how, this isn't a paywall. It's free. It's a free wall. But you'd still need to register. I'm like, listen, do you think just by registering, you're getting my information to message me endlessly, and I just want to read this one article? To me, I feel like that is an incredibly bold thing to do for the initial visit. You can set those things up in a sophisticated way that someone gets it on their fifth visit.
Right. I think Washington Post maybe has one that's like you get
Washington,
like 3 free articles.
Totally. You get 3 free.
Which I like it because it's like by the third one, you're like, look, either you're coming back or you're not. Like, you like it or you don't. I
thought it was so incredibly arrogant of that site to be like, right out of the gate, register, And listen, I'm not going to begrudge someone, I suppose, for executing upon, a marketing and content strategy, because God knows, I am sure when I register with them, they send me, and I select what I like to read about. They're going to send me newsletters and all kinds of email newsletters about it. But come on, like, you got to let someone sample the content. It's like I literally went to their Match profile and they asked me to marry them, I mean, geez Louise, slow down. Just for the love of God. Yeah, that drove me a little nuts. So I actually couldn't read this article at all. I had to lean on you to tell me what it was about.
You basically had a pop-up that said, this isn't the library.
I mean, yeah, get out of here, you kids. And it was a broom that shot that and a hose. An old man. It was an old man with a hose, and he sprayed me to get out of there. So that annoyed me. So in our show notes, again, on tripodpodcast.com, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to share this link, or maybe I can, and you can experience this annoying pop-up registration thing. What's going to happen next is definitely Podcast 101. I'm going to essentially promote a whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, don't like this? Go over here. But listen, am I going to sit here and be like, we're the absolute best? Yes, we are. So that's why we're okay with you going to another show. And that show is called The Playbook, and it's hosted by David Meltzer. And I believe it is part of entrepreneur.com. He does this podcast for them. And this came across, one of my many feeds. And, one day we should also do a digital tool. So I saved it to my pocket, which I absolutely love, saved it, came back to it. And it's a long video. I think it's the whole podcast. It's about 25 minutes. And I watched all of it, but the highlight of this is, and it's David Meltzer sitting down with a guy named Andy Frisella, who is also a host of another podcast called MF CEO, which is another actually really good podcast. And they're sitting down, they're talking, and one of the things that they get to talking about is time. And so what that evolves into is Andy talks about his 5-task rule. And we went ahead and pulled out the audio from that show, and we want to share it with you right here, and then we're going to talk about it. So here we go. Give this a listen.
I think that every great entrepreneur has a philosophy about time. Mm-hmm. They understand that 24 hours of man-made constructive time is different than the infinity of time, or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. Do you have a certain philosophy about productivity and accessibility during time?
Absolutely. Okay, so I have the system that I call the power list. All right, and this is just how it works for me. And I've always done this. Like, this is something I've done since I can't even remember when I started.
Since the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, right, exactly. since I got into real business. Yeah. Like, when I just, because I was in business for a few years before I decided to get serious about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I was like everybody else. I'm like, oh, I'm a business owner. I'm running a business. I had a little business card, and I had a little fucking office. And, I like to whip out my card and give it to people. Right. That's playing business, right? I played business for a long time. When I got serious about business, I got serious about my time. And the way I have learned to manage my time is not in a matter of time. Because right now we have, hustle, fucking never sleep.
Right.
Blah, that's bullshit. That's total bullshit. Okay. Here's how I do it. I pick 5 tasks. Okay. And I have an episode of my podcast. It's episode 107. It's called Win the Day. And the podcast called the MFCEO Project. It's the #1 business podcast in the world. It has been for a long time. Yeah. Very proud of that podcast, especially because it's real raw, dude. And people still resonate with it. So it makes me feel good, like people still are into that.
Old school.
But basically, the way it works is this: I pick 5 tasks. Okay, just 5, not 6, not 7, not 10, and they're 5 critical tasks that I have to get done for my day to count as a win. All right. And now all those 5 tasks are not all business related, by the way. So the way it works is basically like, let's just run through a day.
Yeah.
Let's just say I'm not in any good habits right now, which I am in good habits, but let's just say I'm regular Joe and I'm trying to get my shit together. One of my things is going to be, for me personally, would be to eat a certain kind of diet, whatever the diet is of that goal of my day. Right. Yeah. The second one will be to work out. Whatever my workout is. The third one would be to email you to set up a podcast. Nothing huge.
Right.
Not this huge.
Because I say lower the bar.
Yeah, people will fuck this up because they think like point number 3 is, design the logos or design the branding package for this. That's too big. Yeah. I need it to be small. I need to come up with a logo for the front of this magazine that we're working on that needs to be published today. All right. And then the last 2, one would be like something personal, like practice my guitar for 30 minutes. Okay. And then maybe it would be send another. The other one might be call Ed Milet and talk to him about this, right? But specific shit.
Yeah, that you can get done.
That's right. And it's only 5. And the reason people, because this is how people fuck this up. They're like, dude, it needs to be, I can get 20 done. You can get 20 done, but you can't get 20 done for 20 years straight.
Right.
Right. And that's where the power of this comes in. So it's a compounding thing. So, dude, if my 5 things get done before 10 a.m., guess what I do the rest of the day? I fuck off.
Nice.
That's the truth.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you don't even do 6 or 7. Yeah.
Fuck no. I don't
That's
even do
awesome.
them. Yeah. I do whatever I want. I go to my pool. I go take my cars out. I walk through the office and hang out with the team. I goof off. I live my life.
Yeah.
And what it allows me to do is to progress at a consistent level while still being able to live a normal life. And so people are like, dude, how do you work all this? I don't feel like I work. Like, I have a great team.
Yeah.
I pay them very well. I enjoy seeing them progress. I enjoy what we do because in my business, our main business is in the health and fitness sector. We're vertically integrated in everything that you can do. So everything we do is to help people change their lives in a positive way. So that's fun. Like, what do I have to do that's not fun? I get to go speak to people, thousands of people that are appreciative.
Chanting your name.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool.
They will be.
But I mean, that little 5-step system called the power list, and at the end of the day, I write a W up on the top or an L. And then I can flip through. And a lot of people are like, why don't you do this on the phone? Because I keep a journal, right? And I can actually flip through it and see physically how much I'm winning.
Yeah.
Like, I can see, like,
how many L's do you get in 1 year?
Oh, not many.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Yeah. I mean, now it's like almost automatic.
Yeah.
But in the beginning,
it's in your unconscious
in the
competency.
beginning, you might get 4 W's and 3 L's, right? Every week.
It's important for people to hear that.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I tell people all the time, I give them tasks.
Yeah.
I go, send me a thumbs up if you do the tasks for 14 straight days.
Yeah.
Simple ones like say thank you before you go to bed.
That's it.
Because I believe gratitude is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, it's not because saying thank you is hard. It's because I want to train your mind to be able to do something every day.
Correct.
Because that is the habit machine that you need in order to effectuate habits.
And that's what the cool thing about this program is that I developed is, and it's free. I don't charge for it.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I sound like I'm pitching it, but I'm only pitching it because I believe in it.
Yeah. It works, yeah.
So, like, the key to this program working is, right, is if you've got a W for 21, all right, so let's say the diet part, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for people, hard for me. If you do it 21 days in a row, you automatically have to remove it off your list, all right?
Wow.
Because it's become a habit. Now you replace it with something else that you want to improve. So there's a system it's basically to help you create momentum and then also create the habits as you go. Now, if you get, let's say, you take it off of your list, right? And let's say you get 3 or 4 days where you can recognize you're coming off of that habit.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Go back
on the list.
Of course.
And that's how I do it.
Okay, so what I should tell you actually is after listening to that, I started doing it. And I am I'm a taskmaster, right? I mean, I have every week, I use a tool called Asana. I line up all my to-dos, typically on a Sunday night or a Monday morning. I line up my week for, what I'm going to do on each day. Obviously things come up throughout the week, but I love the idea of the 5 tasks a day. Now, Chris, you gave this a listen. What was your read? Because you're coming at this, I think, from a different perspective, and I want to talk a little bit about that. Because while we do some work together, you work a full-time gig. You work at a full-time job as in part of a company. Right. I am, I own a company. I'm the top of a company. So, what was your kind of initial thought on on this 5-task rule thing?
My initial thought was this guy has 5 tasks and one of the tasks is eat. And so I thought, okay, so you have a 4-task list because what are you going to do? Not eat if you don't put it on your list?
I have to think his example was somewhat flawed there, but I also did tell you, and I wish you hadn't brought it up, this guy is huge. Like one of his companies, I think, is like a sports medicine. This guy, he could squash us both. And now you've done it. Now you've created like you've dissed him. And I just want to go on the record that was Chris Slezak, not Ross Herosian, who has a beef about eating as one of the now I will agree with you in his example of, eat as one of the things.
He was like, and the list says eat, work out, do 3 other things, and then do nothing. And I'm like, that is not work. I mean,
it's not a bad list, to be
fair. That's a sweet list if that's all you do all day. Where exactly does the work come in?
Number 1, wake up. Number 2, brew coffee. Oh man, I'm almost done with my day.
Right, you're crushing it so far.
I will say, I do think that the whole clip, he talks about if you do something, I believe it was like 21 days in a row, then it's now become a habit and it removes itself from the list. So to the example of if I wanted to eat no carbs, perhaps, maybe that could be one of my list things. I would, as much as I've tried, I never make it 21 days. But after that, it develops into a habit and can come off the list, right? But I do and have found in the past, because I've been doing this for about 2 or 3 weeks. We'll circle back in a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. But I was kind of running ragged for a little while there because my lists tend to continue to get added to. And I think that's the case with many people who are business owners. Your list just is endless. And I think what you need to do is to recognize that the most important thing that you have is your energy and your time. And I think that by his 5-task rule, while maybe imperfect, if you're including wake up or eat or brew coffee on that list, I think it starts to set some positive foundation for protecting your time. And that's where I think I've had the most success with this because I've really tried to live very much by it, by not adding things to the list, by, getting the 5 things done, by punting things that aren't important. I would also say when it comes to the task list, if you push something off 3 times, that thing should probably just come off your list, because it's clearly not important.
So are you sticking to this where you do your 5 and then you're like, great, I've done 5 things, I'm done?
Well, let me put it this way. I do my 5 things. Typically, those 5 things are client facing, right? So I do my 5 things. I don't go so far as, I know he had said he's done and that he walks around. I think there's a lot of value to doing the walk around as a company CEO. I obviously don't have that, and most of my staff is remote. What instead it is I just make sure I do these 5 things, and then my time is free for me, I would say, to pick and choose what things.
Sure, but then if you don't get to it, no big deal.
Exactly, because the challenge is when you are starting your own business, there are things that you need to do for your clients, there are things that you need to do for you, and then there are things that you need to do for the company. And so I think what this helps to do is at least set up, okay, let's just say you do 1 or 2 from each of those columns, but then, okay, client emergency comes up. Okay, yeah, you can get to that. But very rarely are there truly, in my experience at least, and in my field, and maybe luckily knock on wood with my clients, do I have emergencies? I think a good example of this would be like today, where I accomplished my 5 things by probably around noon, actually. And I've been long overdue to make a video for Tricycle Creative. So I went out, shot a video, came back, edited the video, had to do some learning on some of the editing stuff that I was doing. So I watched a couple videos. It was enrichment time. That sounds like a superhero call. It's enrichment time. It's really boring. It's like library man. But I think what And I think it also lets you feel like you have accomplished, like there's a finite things, and you can end the day saying, I got everything done on my list. Because if you don't set these boundaries, it will consume you. And I can tell you it's been consuming me for a while. That list never ends. And you know what happens if you don't do something like this? If you don't set I'm going to do this number a day, you get through it. And then you look at tomorrow and you start to try and work through tomorrow to get ahead. And then you know what? You never get ahead.
Right. You
never get ahead. You have to set these boundaries. So I like this a lot. It's not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and necessarily say that, if a client emergency came up and I completed my 5 things, I'm like, well, sorry, friend, I've done my 5 things for the day, but I do think it starts to set a healthy limitation. Now, the flip side of this is, and this is why I said I was interested in your perspective, Chris, because I'm the top of the mountain, top of the heap, if you will.
Sure.
And I think that's where, when you're leading a company, and particularly when you're the owner of a company or the CEO, you need that time, the enrichment time to spend with your employees, to spend with your products and services. This free time where you have, the capacity and the brain power to think properly. Now, I think this would be almost impossible for anyone in the office to execute. In an office to execute.
I mean, when I read this or listened to it, I don't think I once even considered applying it to my job. I thought about it for my own life, enriching my own personal life. But yeah, I at no point thought, oh yeah, I'm going to put 5 things on my list and tell my boss, sorry.
Hey, boss, screw you, friend.
Yeah, I did 5. I'm done.
No, and I think I totally agree with you. These are the types of things that I would read when I was working in a system, and none of this is saying good. This is good or this is bad. These are just different. They're inherently different, right? You're working in a more stable environment. People are coming at you. A boss, coworker, a client, you have it coming at you from all the different directions.
Right. I mean, I don't have to make a list. I don't need a list.
Yeah.
The list is made for me.
Correct.
Which, I mean, has its advantages. I don't necessarily mean that as a complaint. Like, oh, it must be nice that you can make a list. Like, I don't have to think about it. It's there. No. I know what I have to do.
I think I will say the warning sign here, right? I would say people who are romanticizing starting a business, they would see a video like this and be like, oh, cool. I'm going to start my business and do 5 things a day and then go to the gym, Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's all, daisies and rainbows because I only have 5 things, right? There's a lot of other things that happen throughout the day, but this is just about nailing down and saying, I'm going to get 5 concrete things accomplished today. And then the rest of the day, there's flexibility of what projects I'm going to tackle. Because when you are the CEO of a company, particularly, or an owner of a small business, you're responsible for everything. Everything. So like all the content we make that for Tricycle Creative, I got to do that. If we're going to retool our pricing, I'm going to do that. If I have to work on contractor agreements or client complaints or, proposal calls or going out and doing the sales or doing those are all things that I still have to do.
Sure. And even the things that you don't have to do, you have to make sure that the person that is supposed to do them is doing it.
And I think this also helps to at least corral all those things together and at least say, okay, at least once during the week, I'm going to focus on sales by making, this task, right? So it becomes, this is also why, and this is I mentioned this before on the podcast, but this goes back to almost the Bible of productivity, one of them, the Getting Things Done book. And it comes down to having everything in a system, because by having it in a system, you release and remove some of the stress of not knowing what to do next, right? That's a big part of stress around work, is that you don't know what to do next. So do I need to do this? This is, if you have a list, you have a system, that goes away. You still have the stress from doing the jobs, but at least you know where that you can direct it, you know? Sure. So yeah, I just thought this was very interesting. Wanted to share it with you. Again, want to promote David Meltzer's. It is, hold on a second here, let me see a little bit. The Playbook. And again, it's a part of kind of the entrepreneur.com, which is another great website. And Andy Frisella, and he does a MF CEO. I'll let you fill in the blank of what the MF is. Also a podcast. Interesting. He's a very intense guy who as I mentioned, I'm pretty sure is going to be coming for Chris after this show.
Yeah. So, I will lay down and show him my belly in
He may respond well to that. He is huge. He's like a bear. He is going to attack you. And I will just say, I'll stand there. And what I'll do is, when he's done, I will say, was mauling my co-host of my show one of the 5 tasks that you needed to do today? Because if so, you did it. You did a great job on it. Fantastic work.
I'm going to do the double flip. Getting mauled was on my list.
Oh, so then it's a double win. All right. Well, now you can check off listening to episode number 11 of Tripod, the Tricycle Creative Marketing Podcast, from your list. Go ahead and give the 5-task rule thing a shot. Give it a try. Love to hear from you, how it goes, what works for you. We are online at Hello Tricycle. So drop us a line, and again, subscribe to the podcast. I have a couple of interviews. This is a little tease, if you will. A couple interviews in the can that I am working on editing and putting together. So those will be coming to you. We'll have some new Keep Pedaling interviews for you. So that should be fun in the coming weeks. And Chris and I will be back for show number 12 soon. But in the meantime, have a lovely rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to Tripod. For show notes and bonus content, go to tripodpodcast.com. Connect with Tricycle Creative on Facebook and Instagram at Hello Tricycle. Connect with Ross at Ross Hero. Connect with Chris on Instagram at Ruthless Chris Steakhouse.